Aaliyah.
And I'm Yolanda, and this is Real Talk Through Biblical Womanhood. We just started season 4.
Yes, this is episode what? 2?
This is episode 2.
Yes.
We talked about pretty much the creation of women, looking at some of the roles, kind of talking about just God and His protection and uses. But we're going to go in a little deeper with just women in the Old Testament and just how God protected and used women in the Old Testament. And so this is all up until before Christ. So like we might get into a little bit of the New Testament just because we were just going to get into before Christ was here on earth. And so for the last episode, we just kind of talked about just the creation of women and looking at just like women were image bearers as well as men. And I know that Adam was created first, but Eve came from Adam. And so when we think about the creation of man, you know, God said, let us make him in our image. And so by making man in his image, when he pulled that rib from out of Adam, he was making, you know, Eve in his image as well. And I think somewhere, somehow, within that time, you know, with the with sin being, you know, prevalent in us, there became a distorted view on women within history that now has like played, you know, has had a major impact on how women are perceived, you know, throughout history and even now. And so in the last episode, we were talking about like where did it come from that women, you know, literally were lesser than and was viewed for just as a means to, you know, birth babies, be prostitutes, fulfill pleasure for men. Like, because that's what it just seems as though, like, you know, there's like stories in the Bible. There's this one particular story where I see a concubine who literally went somewhere with her husband or the priest or whoever, and she wound up getting dismembered and then sent back, and all her body parts like sent back. No, her body, she was viled. She was violated and then sent back, and so she died in the process. And the guy who her husband went and took different pieces and sent it to the different tribes to say, this is what you did. And I was like, well, that was extreme. And so you just like when you read about women in the Bible, some people have a distorted view. But if you're looking at women in the Bible from the lens of God, you will see that he protected women, you know, he protected women without violating the free will of people, as well as used them as well. So, like, I don't know where this thing came from that women were lesser than and could not be used.
That came from man. I'm just going to be honest. That is not God. So there had to be man that did that.
I love it. That came from man.
It had to be because that's not a God thing.
It's not.
And so I think about like I'm not sure if this particular story is in an old or new, but Bathsheba and David, right?
Girl.
And so how she was just so taken advantage of. You know, even today when we think about how men empowered. That's exactly what I was thinking. Men empower and how they can minimize and take away our everything with the power that they have. And so if we talking about when did that shift change, because in the Bible it says in the beginning, you know, God created, and then he talked about making man and woman in his own image. So, and like I was sharing with Yolanda prior to us recording, God seen us, like he's seen those two as equal. He didn't see, yes, the man was authority over. That doesn't mean that the man is better. And I was trying to find a commentary to what I was reading this morning to read that. But the authority piece is because it has to be order.
Yep.
It has to be someone in position to be authority over so we can have order.
Because too many cooks in the kitchen is going to be chaos.
Exactly. And so, which is why, so I'm going to tell you, so let me just get comfortable.
Get real.
Prior to where I am in my walk with Christ, I was one of those women that was like, a man can't tell me nothing. I can do everything a man can do, right? I don't need no man, you know, and again, I think that's society.
I was like that too.
You know,
let me stop laughing at you.
Yeah. But again, our circumstances, the world, our upbringing, all of that stuff create that image or that thought in your mind. So it's not that I was wrong for thinking that. Everything around me
The culture, that's what the culture dictates.
The culture make you think that, especially in the black community. In the black community, black women we strongly believe, because we're forced to sometimes, all right? We don't need no man. I got these kids. I can do this. I can do that. Because we have no choice sometimes. And again, that talks about authority and the headship. Right. They not in line. So we have to make ourselves comfortable with doing all of this stuff and playing these roles and them being absent. So we tell ourselves that. Right. So that we can feel good doing that. But that's not what God called us to do. So that's the first thing I wanted to start out with. But the second thing is this. When I made it up in my mind that I wanted to commit to actually changing those things about me, because I was such a rough woman. I could do all things, you know. God started to show me why I was so exhausted, why I was so depressed, why I was so strung out, because I'm taking on these roles that he did not call me to take on. Right. And yes, my kids need a mother. They need a father too. But at the end of the day, my role is their mother. Yep. Right? I'm supposed to be their mother. I'm supposed to nurture. Yep. You know, do all of those things. When that position is vacant, you feel obligated to take over. But that's not what we're supposed to do.
And that's a protection to me from the Lord.
Exactly. Like he's like, when he give you the strength to carry it out. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you are now better than the headship. Nope. And so for me, I recognize now that yes, I have some skills. I am blessed with some things. I can do a number of things that he strengthened me to do. Right. But that does not mean that I don't need a headship and I don't need a authoritative figure over me. Like, I am to respect that role. And that doesn't mean that person has to come in and say, hey, I'm the man and you do what I say. They can be very gentle and soft-spoken. But if they are led by the Father and the authority is coming from God first and then them over me, then I recognize that that's something that I can yield to.
And I need for us to understand as women that it is okay for a man to come in and say, look, babe, this is not going to work for us. We need to do X, Y, and Z. Don't look at that as toxic masculinity.
But I'm going to tell you, that's a fleshly thing too. You know how when your parents tell you can't do something,
girl, and you feel
it on the inside.
ODD, like, what you mean?
And so imagine as an adult with somebody you have not grown up with, and they're supposed to be the headship over you, coming and tell you what you can't do. And that's one of the things that I've been praying about, because I always talk about I have the desire to get married again. But if I am to do it the way God said it's supposed to be done, I got to be willing to accept my husband saying, hey, no, that don't work for our family. This is what we need to do. And I'm going to tell you, because of my upbringing and all of the things that have been put into me, I'm resistant. What?
Who you think you're talking
yes, yes, I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, that is that flesh. Fighting against those things that we ain't supposed to be doing. And not following God's way.
And that's why I said it's like that protection. You know, I've said this a couple of episodes, a couple of seasons ago, with my girlfriend, who she told me, like, yeah, for real. She was like, that whole notion of, I don't need no man, I don't need protection. She was like, the safest I've ever felt is when I'm with my husband. And I was like, that is so deep. Yeah. And I don't think we understand that. Like, what we have to understand, and this is what, not even just true for women, but also for men. God put those commandments and he's giving us boundaries to protect us. And for us to look at those things as things that hinder us, that's the problem. And we have to understand, like, when we look at the way God protects women throughout and how he used women throughout, like, that should be our model for us to say, yo, slow your roll. It's not about you. And like Celia said, like, that is a man thing. And when we say a man thing, it doesn't also necessarily just mean males either. It could be like the female, like that human, and the human nature in us, because we are all sinners. And so our minds become very combative when it goes against something that our flesh desires. Amen. And so for a female, our flesh desires for us to have some sense of control. And it's like, but sometimes what you're trying to control is actually not good for you.
Right.
Yeah, what you about to say?
And so let me just say something right there. And sometimes we don't know it's not good for us.
No.
Like, for me, that's one of the things that I crave, because I know I don't make good decisions all the time. But the fact that I never really have like that to go, someone to go to and say, hey, what do you think like that? Or just shut me down. I'm left to making my own decisions. And so sometimes I don't make the best ones. And so I wanted to read this. This is 1 Corinthians, and I want to read the commentary to it too. 1 Corinthians chapter 11, 37. Okay. It say, a man should not wear anything on his head when worshiping. For man is God's glory, made in God's own image. But woman is the glory of man. For a man was not made for woman's benefit, but woman was made for man. So a woman should wear a covering So a woman should wear a covering on her head as a sign of authority, because the angels are watching. And so I want to read, let me read number 11. It say, but in relationships among the Lord's people, women are not independent of men, and men are not independent of women. So I wanted to read that because, we are together. But this is the commentary. It say, God created lines of authority in order for his created world to function smoothly. That's what I was trying to get to, why it was created, that the man was over. Although there must be lines of authority even in marriage, there should not be lines of superiority. God created men and women with equal and complementary characteristics. One sex is not better than the other. We must not let the issue of authority and submission become a wage to destroy oneness in marriage. Instead, we should use our unique gifts to strengthen our marriages and to glorify God. And so I wanted to read that because that is so important. God did not create men to be, what you say,
superior
over woman. It wasn't for that. We all have different characteristics. We all have different gifts to bring to the table. Because your man don't make your gifts no better than mine. Because you stronger and you tougher. That don't mean that God see you differently than me. If anything, your call is a lot stronger. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's on you more than he's actually seeing those things for me. And so I just, for the men, and because I know I have this thing when it comes to alpha males where I'm just like, I can't stand it. Because for some who are cocky and arrogant, because they look at you like you have nothing to offer. But if we got into a different, like for instance, I know men who think that because they are strong, they're big and got muscles, that they're the man. But if they go through surgery and need a caregiver and you can't wipe your behind or you in pain, then somebody like myself who is 4'11", who is qualified can come in there and do that and have value at that point. And so for me, that is a man thing and not a God thing, because God and even our Savior did not view women like that.
But that goes to just those three, sins, and that's that pride of life. And so our ego, and I always talk about that. That ego literally will shoot you in the behind. Because our egos become so big. And we see that with men, but we also then see that with women when women become so prideful and they say, I can do more, I can do all that a man can do, if not better. And I should have, equal, playing field with the men. There are just some things that men can do that we can't do. And there's some things that women can do that men can't do. And that's okay.
You know what my dad said the other day? Because we was talking about that. He said, one thing that a woman can do that he know for a fact that men cannot do, like all day, and we can do it with no problem. And I never thought about this. But he said, carry a baby on your hip. Now, of course, we know men can't carry babies physically, right? But you know how women, we had a baby on our hip and we could walk like that. And we could he said, a man can't do that. He said, you know how much our side would be hurting? He said, just carrying a baby all day, period, is not something that a man can do. He said, I don't know if God gave y'all the patience to do it or what. But even like when it comes to it's just certain things that God gave us the ability to be able to do. And God gave you guys the ability to be able to do, but it does not mean that we are better than each other.
I think one of them is multitasking.
You think that is men that can't multitask? You don't think they're good at it?
I've seen men struggle with multitasking. If they can do like maybe at 2 things, but I've seen women be able to do 3 and 4 things at one time.
I'm accustomed to doing 3 or 4 things at once.
And still pay attention and still be engaged in the conversation. Yeah. So like, and some men will tell you like, I can't do all that. I got to focus on one thing at a time. And that's okay, but I think that piece about complementing one another, like like we have things that complement one another.
Yep, it says God created men and women with unique and complementary characteristics.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so I think that God wanted us to see that like throughout, like you all have your differences, but you all also bring something to the table. And so just looking at when we look through the Bible and we look at how he went and used women to kind of like even get to the man, like, because you're not going to listen because you're going to be hard-headed. And to me, like a prime example is Esther. Yeah. Like you're not going to do what you need to do. But what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to protect this young woman, this young lady right here. I'm going to get her up in this.
So she can get in your ear and tell you what's going on.
And I'm going to make sure that you notice her. Mm-hmm. And she's gonna be your queen, and now I'm gonna use her to save my people.
Amen.
And so that we see that happen even with women who are outside of the covenant. Like you see that happen even with the Pharaoh's daughter when she picked Moses out of the water.
Yes.
Like what is, first of all, you're not supposed to be keeping any Jewish baby alive. Yeah. But yet you got this Egyptian woman seeing this baby, and I know she knew that baby, was from Israel, and she was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna take care of this baby, and actually talked her father into letting her raise that child, as her own. And so not only is Moses being, protected, by this Egyptian woman, but then like he's able to kind of understand the Egyptian ways, so that when he leaves and comes back, you see it happen again with Moses' wife, where God used her to protect Moses. Like, you better get your boy. She was like, hun. We got to circumcise these boys right now. Let's do that, because you about to really like mess stuff up. Yeah. And so like God he was using those wives to kind of like talk to those men, like, because he over here doing something that he ain't got no business
tripping
doing
right now. But I'm gonna use it. So that goes back to when we were talking about how women were viewed or how they are seen. One of them that I remembered, not even pointed out to me in the Bible today, but as a helpmate. When we talk about wives, that what you just said, it describes what a helpmate is. My goal is to come in here and talk some sense into you, so that you don't destroy our entire family, nation, none of that.
Everything about to go down.
Exactly. And so again, these are the things that woman was created for. You know what I mean? I love that God calls the woman a helpmate.
Yes. Because I need for you to know I'm here basically so she can support you.
Yes, she's your partner.
You're going to support him. Okay. I think like looking at how he's used them as leaders, as people who also protected. So Rahab.
That's what I was just thinking about. When
Rahab. Like first of all, Rahab's position was somebody that pretty much nobody was supposed to be paying attention to her because of
she was a prostitute, right?
So they go in between, because there are some people, like when you look at the commentary, it says that she was the head of a inn, so they call her like an innkeeper. Okay. But then there are some things that says that she's a prostitute, so like it could be either or. But at the end of the day, like nobody was really going to be engaging in conversations with her or looking at her as an ally to help. Yeah. But she was like, look, let me tell y'all something right now. I done heard about your God. Yeah. I done heard about what he did. I'm not playing. Yeah. We y'all need me to hide you. I got you. You know? And like literally she protected not only, those 2 spies, but then she protected her whole entire family as well, because everybody that was in Jericho perished except for her family. Yeah. When we get further down the line, we look at how Ruth was used to kind of get Naomi out of her head. Yeah. Like, because Naomi was in her feelings.
She definitely
was. She was like, I'm cursed. Ruth was like, boom, come on. Let's go back to your hometown.
You remember this guy?
Right, and then Ruth was like, I'm gonna go out here in these fields. I'm gonna go ahead, get us some food, get us so we can make some ends meet. And I said, and then look at that. And so, as you see all these things happening, even with Bathsheba, even though Bathsheba was done dirty, Bathsheba still came back and protected King David's line, by saying like, look, they out here doing some dirty, rotten scoundrel stuff, sir. Yeah. You said my son was going to sit on this throne. What's going on? And she didn't do it out of pride. She did it following Prophet Nathan's, directions. Like, look, go on there. This is how you're going to come up to it. But it's like the way God used them. But I think, to me, like the biggest one that stands out is, one, how he protected Mary, and how he used her.
Which Mary?
Jesus' mother.
Okay.
Yeah, because Jesus' mother was supposed to be God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of that pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was supposed to be, a
he
done
protected
deal.
her by sending that angel.
Yep. And basically, like, saying, like, look, Joseph, I know this is not ideal.
Yeah.
But I'm over this. Like, this is me that's doing this. She good people.
Yeah.
But, like, if you look at women from that lens point, like how God is using and even protecting them, I think you will understand how women are supposed to be valued. Just like men are valuable, women were valuable as well. And so, because they're not those key players in the book, like they were key players in the book. They did contribute. They did help. If it wasn't for, a lot of them, I don't know where we'd be. Even looking at Abigail. She was the one. So Abigail was one of David's concubines, one of David's wives. I think she might have been his second or third wife. And he was about to go ham because her husband was acting a whole fool. And she came out there, and when I say she sweet talked to him, like, look, I came out here with some food. I came out here to just give you some rest.
Yeah.
My husband is dumb. I know he did something real stupid.
Yeah.
Please just forgive him. Just let it be.
Yeah.
And like she actually simmered David down, because David could have like walked into sin by going and killing her husband, because that wasn't something that was ordered by God. That was the flesh, because his pride was like, I've been out here protecting your land, and all I asked for was a little snack, and you come at me like that. Like, his pride got the best of him. He was about to go and kill like all of that man's people. Yeah. And she came out and she was like, good Lord, please. I know he was wrong, but can you spare us? And that kind of like helped David kind of like not sin. And that wasn't even her man. That wasn't even her man. She was just out there, and the Lord used her. So, like, when you go through the Old Testament again, look at how God used those women and how he protected them. Like, don't go there looking for what she did and, why she did it wrong and how she messed up. Just look at how he used and protected women throughout, the Old Testament, because you'll see women in a different way. And this is not just for women. If it's a male that happened to be catching this episode, go through the Old Testament and look at how God used and protected women, so you can understand why women should be valued. And I feel as though, because women felt as though they weren't valued, that's why
protected.
Yeah, that's why we see like this shift where now we just, like you said, like women just trying to be men, because it's not even about I'm holding myself down. It's almost like they're even trying to step into that male role and saying that males are obsolete. They're not needed anymore. And it's just like, let's stop. Let's pause for a second, because that's a vast extreme, right there.
So as you're talking, I'm just thinking about, we're talking about the protection of God, but I'm thinking about the lack of protection of the men that were in the Bible. So we talk about Adam already, and how he didn't even protect her from that serpent.
Yeah, the woman that you gave me,
threw her under the bus. And then I'm even thinking about like Sarah, right? Because it should have been some reassurance there, or something shut down there. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, because Abraham should have been like, look, boo, stay next to me. Stay next to me. When we get up in here, because it wasn't even Sarah who was nervous that the men were going to be attracted. He was the nervous.
One. Yeah.
He was nervous. Yeah. And it was like, are you really?
Yeah.
So you really want me to be your sister? Oh, you really want me to go live with this man?
See, that is such a lack of protection right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so then you see there's a whole domino effect.
But
from
Adam
that.
just seemed like a coward to me. I know Adam.
I think Adam, because I think
Adam, and then.
So here's the thing: we have never had an encounter with God. We have never been in the presence of God.
Right.
And so can you imagine? Scared, Can you imagine like just that presence alone? Yeah. And it's just like that guilt, because when they ate that fruit, they understood right from wrong. And that guilt and that shame because that's the enemy. Because that is all of the enemy. Because what the enemy probably planted in them was, now God is definitely going to come for you, and he's not going to love you anymore. He's going to see you as this, because that's what guilt and shame does to us. It makes us feel as though we are no longer, acceptable to be in God's presence. First of all, we were not acceptable to be in God's presence, but from his grace, we are able to say, like, Lord, thank you. We have been given the gift of salvation. We have been given the gift of prayer. We've been given the gift to actually come to him, and come to him with our prayers. He hears our prayers. He knows our hearts. Like, he understands us. But when the enemy gets in your head, the enemy will literally have you thinking the most vile thing about God. And so you could just imagine, like, the first time of that feeling of, like, that separation.
Yeah, so immediately he went right into the blame game.
Because it's like literally that separation was like, it's a feeling that you don't want to kind of like have, like, to not feel God's presence. And so, God coming like, where are you? And like, as parents, when we ask a child something, and then we already have the answer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it was just like that immediate, like, look.
And some kids, like, immediately it's on them to blame or lie or deny. So.
And in that piece, I see not only God protecting, Eve, I also see him modeling to Adam of how to be accountable for your actions. Yeah. Like, this is what it looks like to protect, your family. Yeah. You are the head of the household, so you have to take accountability for that. I always say that as a leader in a school, it all comes back to my principal. And so any decisions that's made, anything that happens, even if it's a teacher that's doing it, my principal is the one whose name is on that. He's the one that has to be held responsible for that, because you need to know what's happening within your building. And so it's the same thing, as the head of the household, you need to know what's going on within your family
and take accountability for
it. And so just being able to say, as soon as he, like, have your wife at your side with you at all times. If she's saying that she's venturing out, I'm gonna venture out with you, baby. Well, hold on for a second. Let me finish. Go ahead and chopping down some of these, vines right here, and then we can go out together. But, just being with them at all times, just actually stepping in and speaking up, saying, like, hey, hon, like, I don't think we should do that. I think we have put men sometimes in a place where they are nervous or apprehensive about speaking up. Because they don't want to be seen as being, toxic,
a dictator and stuff like that. But I also think some of those men got put in those places because they didn't have a father in the home. There are some men who were raised by women who created those mama boys and those men who lack authority. Because, and I am one. The only thing is, I can say, I tried to push and promote to my boys that they were the authority, they were the heads. But if you have a mom who is, again, showing those characteristics of a father or trying to be a dad, it makes a man, emasculates him a little bit, I think, because it's like, I'm under her authority because she is here. So, I'm taking authority from my mom. Not saying you're not supposed to, because I think me and my dad even had this conversation. Like, if my dad is not around, am I not supposed to listen to my mother? No, if your dad's not around, you are supposed to listen to your mom. But I do believe that there are consequences for your dad not being around. Right. And so when we talk about men being the headship and authority, how do they learn that if they don't have that as somebody who is there to show you that?
But it goes back to that protection piece again. Yeah. Like, the Lord is like, I created marriage for this specific reason. And when you go against what I've created, what you now then is put yourself under this you put yourself in a situation where you're no longer going to be protected. And these are the implications of it. So, like, now your son is not going to understand what it means to be the head, to protect. And then it creates this dynamic, this family dynamic that then is, like, kind of torn down. And we see that happen, a lot in the Bible, that shows, like, because of sin, that family dynamic was no longer going to be what it needed to be. Right. Like, we see that with Isaac and Rebecca, and then the twins, and how Rebecca talked one twin into doing something, or Isaac had love for this one, twin over the other. And so you see that then with Jacob and his boys and his wives. So you just kind of just see the effect of sin. And then God just literally not just protecting women, but also protecting men as well, of like they're just of us from ourselves. Like, I need to protect y'all from yourselves. Yeah. I need to protect y'all from the sin that you now are just living in, from the women to the men. I got to protect you from yourself. I got to protect, her from the things that you are now putting her in the midst of. Right. Like, it's just a lot of things that we don't realize that God is keeping us from. The things that he is trying to do within us, and the things that he's trying to do for other people down the line. Mm-hmm. Because he sees everything. He's not, caught off guard by just the nuttiness of just the world. And so you just think about, it was bad then. It's bad now. Like, it's just going to continue to get bad, because what we're living in right now is just generations of defining what culture, what's right and what's wrong, and then what that looks like. And so every time you turn around, we're constantly redefining roles. We're constantly redefining, positions, and it's just getting murkier and murkier to like where, we do have people who are trying to take on roles of males or females.
And I was going to say that.
It's too much.
And so if we do that, then we raise kids who are confused about stuff like that.
And then have families, and then that dynamic is just confusing. So, yeah.
So I guess we were talking about the protection of God, right?
Yeah. So the protection and how He used women. Yeah.
I just want to say too, real quick before we end, right? Mm-hmm. God's protection may not necessarily look like what we think it should look like.
That part.
Yeah.
That part.
Is the story about Tamar in the New or Old Testament?
It's in the Old Testament.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, I know that some stuff happened to her that was allowed. Mm-hmm. But I know that ultimately in that story, God's will was done. Yeah. So I think that sometimes we need to make sure that we are not, He's sovereign. That's what I learned.
Yes. So
the way He may protect or fix a situation, to us it may be like, how could God let something like that happen to a woman?
Right.
Or, those sort of things. He knows His plan better than we do.
And we also have to understand that with free will, that goes for everyone. So what if He's going to stop the free will of somebody who's doing something sinful to that degree? That means He got to stop us in our free will as well. Yeah. If you don't want Him to do that for you, then that's not going to happen. And so part of sin is that things are going to happen that we don't want to happen. Yeah. The Lord sees it, and what He does, He uses it for everything. And so what He used that piece for is like, I need you to see something in your child that you probably didn't even see.
Absolutely.
And I'm letting you know what's to come, because this is who your child is. And so whenever I see stories like that, like I start to like, as I get further and further in the word, or I because when you read the word over and over again, things start to be revealed to you that you didn't read it in the first, second, or even third sitting, that you then start to see like, like that's what that's revealing. Oh, that's what that, because we always look for, it's bad, why didn't God do something? It's bad, why didn't God do something? Right. But we never look for Him in the details. Yeah. What is He trying to reveal and show us?
What was the outcome? What was He protecting them from? What was,
all of that. Yeah. So we thank you for this episode. Absolutely. We're gonna get into our next episode, and hopefully that you'll participate with that one. We're just grateful for this. We're asking that if you have anything that we can specifically pray for you for, please put it in the comment section, whether it's on TikTok, YouTube, any of the platforms that you're using to listen to us, or even just email us. That can be found in the link of our page. We're just really excited about this season, to be able to just talk about women. Women in the Bible. First of all, it's just biblical womanhood. So just talking about women in the Bible. So Leah, can you give us the challenge you gave the last time?
Yes. So I'm going to challenge each and every one of you who are watching these episodes for the next couple episodes or for the season. Just partner with a sister that you may not have a good relationship with. Reach out to sisters at your church, at your job, in your family. Reach out to those that you deem as not so lovable, and just figure out a way that you can pour into that person. You can build a relationship with them and just become a better sister in Christ, period. That is the challenge for this season, for us to find a sister to be a sister to.
Yeah, find a sister to be a sister. I like that.
Yeah, so I think that we should make that the challenge the whole season.
I think so.
Because it's important to build relationships.
Yes.
And, you know, a lot of times, even myself, I used to say, oh, I get along better with men. You know, I can't deal with no females. Even now, I feel that. And so I think even God is challenging me in that area. So
yeah, I love it.
Good thing to do.
All right.
Thank you.
Y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.